Podsters, we are coming in. I'm coming in so hot today. I am so excited about this guest. It is, I don't think this has never happened. This has never happened. I saw Cara on LinkedIn and I really liked what she had to say. She wrote a book. It's called Burned Out to Lit Up, Ditch the Grind and Reclaim Your Life, which all of you that listen know that this is this is my jam. I bought the book immediately, read the book, and I have to be honest, Cara, I was reading this book, I was getting ready to read the book, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. You see all these books about burnout,
You
and
do. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. So then, Podsters, fast forward. I love the book. I called Cara, we chatted, we decided it would be good to release this towards like the end, beginning, middle of Q3. Four, what are we in? November, December? Yeah, whatever. Anyway, toward the end of the year when we all start feeling burned out more than usual. And so, Cara, I'm getting ready to do this. I'm going to introduce you in a second, but I'm getting ready and I'm writing my notes down. I go, oh, you know what? I'm going to go to my Kindle and look at what I highlighted. Okay.
Hmm.
So I go to my Kindle. It is like pages and pages of highlights of this
Ooh.
woman preaching the gospel and, similar to what we talk about here, but such a different perspective. So, welcome, Cara Hoosier. Did I say it right?
Yes, perfect. Thank
Oh my
you.
God.
I'm so pleased to be here. I'm super excited. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pumped you're here. So Cara is the burnout lady.
Mhm.
She's a life work integration coach. I can't wait to talk to you about life work. She makes burnout recovery accessible and fun and happens to be the author of an award-winning book, Burned Out to Lit Up, Ditch the Grind and Reclaim Your Life. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Thank
excited.
you.
Are you in
Me too.
California? By the way, Podsters, if you're not watching on YouTube, she's got this beautiful background. Is that really your background?
Yes, I do live in California. This is a little, we have like a little secondary unit under our house
Yeah.
and we Airbnb it and have it for guests and stuff.
Love, love,
So this is it. And I
love.
just renovated it last year and designed
Looks
it
great.
myself. So
Looks great.
super
Looks
cool.
great. All right, so we'll jump in. So much I want to talk with you about. We're going to talk about the illusion of balance because Cara and I agree that there is no such thing. We're going to talk about self-possession. We're going to talk about crazy bosses because we've all had them and maybe some of them have been them. We're going
Mhm.
to talk about self-love, all the things. So let's go. So, Cara, tell us, how did you go from, I like to call you a real estate tycoon, even though you're in real estate. So tell us
I'll
how you
take it.
got from commercial real estate executive to writing this book and making it your life's mission to help women with this. Like, what happened?
Y- Yeah, it's a long old story, but very briefly, don't worry. Yes, I was in real estate housing development for many years. And after about 15 years grinding away, doing all the stuff, raising kids, doing things for my husbands and my parents and the community and just being that kind of person that signs up for stuff. After years of doing that, I just finally hit the wall. And in looking back, so this journey, I hit the wall like 10 years ago, folks.
Okay.
And looking back, the signs were all there. So many symptoms, so many clues, all ignored until finally, for me, and like for a lot of people, it took a health emergency in my family, like something emergency level, smack in the face level thing for me to just stop spinning around like a mad woman, trying to be everything to everyone except myself for years on end, and come to terms with the fact that what I was doing, my lifestyle was completely and totally unsustainable. And it took something that big of a deal for me to essentially have a freak out, a big, ugly, crying freak out where, my family and my friends who we were with at the time were like, whoa, you might consider a sabbatical. And I was like, sabbatical? I'm not an old professor. How does this apply to me?
Yeah.
Also, do I even deserve this? I don't have it that bad. What am I whining about? Why can't I get it together? Just all the reasons why we never get around to getting our crap together because apparently we don't think that we are worth doing that. But luckily for me, I don't know if it's lucky or not, but I was in such a dire state at that point, physically and mental health wise, that I had to. I had to
Yeah.
take a break.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I made a plan for me to take basically a mid-career break is what it turned out to be.
Great. Yeah. So tell me, you mentioned casually, you said all the signs and clues were there. So what are some of the signs and clues
Mhm.
that the signs and clues of what, and what are those signs and clues, I guess?
So the signs and clues of descending into burnout, and a lot of them you've heard, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm so tired and just exhausted that no amount
Mm,
of rest resolves this." Your immune system kind of starts misfiring and you're sick a lot and you're having a lot of other symptoms. For me, chronic headaches. So like your body's throwing up signal flares and you're just trying to throw pills at it or ignore it or think like, "Oh, I can just power through this." A short temper, flaring at people. I mean, at one point I was actually full on yelling at this lady at work. And then I went to the bathroom and was like, "Cara, what the hell?"
mhm,
This is
mhm,
totally inappropriate, you
mhm.
know? I made amends. Don't worry, folks. Like I realized my bad immediately.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
sheesh. And then the other one that people are more surprised about is the loss of your sense of humor and
Mm,
connection to joy, and just
mm.
knowledge of what in the hell you find fun or enjoyable in life anymore. Like
Yep, yep.
looking back, people would ask me, "Hey, Cara, what do you do for fun?" And they're just trying to be like fun and sociable. And I would just think, that is a stupid question. Like, I don't have time to sleep or, have a friend or
Fun, right,
anything. And like,
right.
why do you, I don't, but of course, I know now what a heartbreakingly important question that is to have a ready answer to and to have a lifestyle around. Like, if we don't
Mhm.
know how to relax and enjoy life, then we're never doing that stuff. And those things are 100% required
Right,
because we are living, breathing beings. And we're
right.
not meant to go level 11 all the time.
Yeah, I am when I know when I don't feel like myself for an extended period of time, that's my red flag. That's my, if I lose interest in stuff, if I, if somebody's, if people are like, "Oh, you want to go do something?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." Like, I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
mean, of course, there's some stuff I just don't want to do, but when I feel myself just not being myself for a while, I'm like, okay, something's gonna change. Like something's gonna change. So that's
I
mine.
love that. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's that sense of disconnection. It should have just
Mm-hmm.
not even, you don't know what you're really about anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
when
Oh,
that's true, then you're not connected to yourself, your values, whatever, then you're not able to make decisions that are in alignment with that. And
mm-hmm.
you're actually not able to connect with anyone else in real and honest ways either, because you're not really you. You're kind of
Right.
wearing a mask of pleasing the world versus knowing what you need to be
Yeah.
nourished and happy.
So I remember reading your book, and I have tons of highlights, so we're going to go through all of them. And I read the story about your moment, that pivotal moment when you were in the, was it a ski lodge? Were you in a someone's ski home?
We were at our
Yeah.
friend's snow home, kind of near Tahoe in Northern
Mm-hmm.
California. It was a blizzard. I mean, ridiculous weather. And they had invited these other friends over who we didn't know for dinner. And I was in charge. They were going to bring the dessert or whatever, but I was in charge somehow with making the dinner for everybody. And so I'm doing all that. And I'd had a crazy week at work. And I think I had some reels running in my head around that. And our kids were little, like 5 and 7, and everybody was running around. And I was trying to like, when you're trying to focus on all the things at the same time, you're not really focusing on anything.
Yeah, I
It,
hate that.
it, anyway, the people brought the food, and normally we have, my son has a life-threatening nut allergy, and so we were accustomed to it. I would see people and I'd be like, "Okay, just so you know, we have this. What's in the food?" But I just didn't have that conversation, and we ate the dinner, and the kids scampered off, and next thing we knew, they got into it before I could have this conversation. And the next thing I knew, my daughter comes running up and she's like, said that her little brother had eaten nuts, like nut brownies. And he'd never heard of that before. He just thought it was brownies with, I don't know, white chocolate chips or something.
Rocks,
But
right,
there's a bunch
right,
of
right, right, right.
walnuts in there. And I just felt my soul flee. Honestly, like I think I literally
Hmm.
almost fainted because I was thinking like we had his EpiPen, we had the Benadryl, but if you have a nut allergy kid in your house, that's not you're not done. Like you have to go to the hospital
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it keeps rebounding for like a day or two, and you got
Mm-hmm.
to go get all this medicine, all this crap. And I thought, how are we gonna? I mean, our friends called 911. The ambulance takes about 500 years to get there. It's remote. It's a blizzard. we do the EpiPen, we do it, and I'm like shaking so badly that I was having trouble like really managing the situation. And I felt a lot of shame about that later. I was like, man, you can't even get it together for your kid. The amount of just self torture we apply when we just need to take five and get some help. Oh, God, it's rough. It's rough even thinking back to it. All was well. We got through it. But the next day,
Mhm.
now that was the ugly crying day
Mhm.
for like days,
So,
actually.
yeah, I want to pause for a second because first of all, thanks for sharing the story because so my niece has a nut allergy. And so for those of you who don't know this, that are listening, when your child or anybody has nut, it's automatic. It's my kid can't have nuts, tree nuts, or whatever. What's in it? You just automatically everywhere you go to a truck stop on the highway, you go to wherever. It's
Mhm.
just automatic. It's like breathing. You just I can't have nuts or tree nuts. What's in that? What's in that? What's in that? What's in that? So your mind, your state of mind, and I'm not, the shame, I want to talk about that in a minute, but to not even have that on your radar when it's something that's built in. So that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
It's like putting the car in park. When you park the
Mhm.
car, you just do it, right? So
Mhm.
imagine you're so preoccupied and burnt out and stressed out, you forget to put the car in park and you go walk away from your car. And that, I don't know if that's a good
Yeah,
analogy, but
kind of is. Yeah.
so for me, it's I can't imagine the state of mind that you were in that house. This is before anything happened. That you're just like, oh, like and it breaks my heart because we do this to ourselves. We do this to
Mhm.
ourselves. The world is always going to want too much of us. We're always going to have crazy bosses. My word for the rest of the year is shed. I decided to have another word for the year called shed.
Mm.
I've been talking to people about it. The number one thing I'm going to shed is my unrealistic expectations of myself.
Oh, I'm joining on that. That's adding to mine. Yes.
Like, oh my God, like I just and of course you're a great mother. Of course, and to have all of that in your head, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because I see so many people do it and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
So the next day, so obviously your child is fine, or we wouldn't be talking about it this cavalier-ish. And I'm sure your husband was probably like, babe, it's okay. Like, it's all right. Let's just get through it, right? So, so
By
tell
the
me
way, he did
about,
not feel shame at not having the conversation about the nuts with the other
of
family.
course not.
It
No,
just because that's always kind of, I don't know.
checked
Apparently, I have
off.
to have that on my list.
Right, right,
And
right.
that's not to say, and he's, by the way, beautiful dad and husband. Oh,
Fantastic. Right, right. Well,
no
that's
shade.
just,
And
yep.
it just done, it wasn't in his sense of self expectation. And, so he didn't feel bad about himself
Mhm,
after in the
mhm.
way that I
Right,
chose, unfortunately, to for a long time.
right. So reverse that, right? Like, let's say he was usually the one that advised everybody and he didn't. I guarantee you, we as women would have been like, why didn't I pick up the ball on that? Why didn't I, I knew I didn't hear her at, yeah, anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not ripping on your husband because all men do it. It's the way we're socialized. Anyway, so you had this moment and you said, so you had a family meeting with the hubs and you said, I need a break.
Hmm. Yeah, it became clear that, I was trying to throw things at it, and probably some of the listeners can relate to this. I was going to the doctor and getting checked out for this thing. I was going and trying to learn about, trying to add some of those fun self-care hacks I'd read about on the internet to my life. I just like didn't have the bandwidth, or, just because they cost money, they take more
Right,
time.
right, right.
How am I going to do this thing? I don't have any time for this. And so I kind of had been trying to do those, but I talk about it sometimes as putting a band-aid on a stab wound. Like, I needed to make some serious freaking top to bottom systemic changes, folks. And getting a massage is not gonna, or whatever, like it's not gonna solve what's happening here. It's just completely out of whack at a systems level, mindset wise, habits wise, health wise, all of it. And so I was trying to get all this, look into things,
Mhm.
and it wasn't working. And so yes, we made a plan. It took a little bit of time for us to put this sort of financial plan in motion for me to actually do this. But when I finally left, I was running on fumes, and I didn't know if and when I was going to come back. I actually it was scary. I thought I was kind of broken. I thought, this is like 10 years ago. I was like 40 years old, and I thought, am I going to work again? What is wrong with me? I
Mm-hmm.
can't find out what's wrong with me. I wanted there to be a thing wrong with me, a
Mm-hmm.
specific thing, so I could then deal with that thing and get
Mm-hmm.
on with going
And
back to
get
all of
back
my
to
bad
work. Right.
habits,
Yeah. Yeah.
going
Yeah.
back to doing all the stuff I
Yeah.
was doing that was not working.
Yeah.
And of course, that for me, I'll PS, do get checked out for everything if you think you have a thing. Totally. Rule stuff out. And it might be that you come to where I am was where it's actually a whole bunch of things that are not firing that need to be addressed.
Hmm. Uh, yes. That's all I can
Yeah.
say. Yes. So you mentioned a massage, and I love this because to me, and this has been the past couple of years, self-care is not about getting your nails done or a facial. And that used to be my thing. I'm having a self-care day, I'm going to get a facial and get my nails done. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I do that and I should, and I want to, and I enjoy it. And at the same time, first of all, I think if you're in the middle of burnout, you can't even do that. You can't even do
Mm-hmm.
that. Like getting making the phone call to make the appointments, it's too much. You just can't do it. That's one sign I know when I'm approaching burnout is I can't even do what I want to do to get out of the burnout. So the other thing I wanted to say was I love the way you said this because we talk about this here on the podcast, knowing what you need to be nourished and happy. That to me is that's my thrive list. I have a list. Here's everything I
Mm-hmm.
do when I can feel myself getting jacked up that I know helps me thrive. And it could be something like, 15 seconds of sunlight, call my
Mm-hmm.
granddaughter, whatever. Have a cup of tea. So, and these are really small things. And I never really thought of it as this is what I need to do to feel nourished and happy. And I love the word nourish.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me why you chose that word.
Well, because it's about tending to ourselves in a
Mm,
really gentle and beautiful way, inside and out. So nourishing, the body is about nutrition and sleep and exercise. And nourishing within is having some sort of mindfulness practice, prayer, journaling, something that gets you to what some people call like the mental gym, where you're actually tending to that piece of you.
mhm, mhm.
And and if we don't tend to that, it atrophies just like muscles do when we don't move. We think, oh well, I meditated one time and it didn't
It
work,
didn't
so
work. Didn't work.
it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, also I went for a walk once and then it was over. Like you know, I didn't become a bodybuilder after that. Like you have to we do things as a lifestyle, which is why I say systems change. These are lifestyles. And I
Mm,
love the Thrive List wording, and I call it ingredients for well-being. And I learned through which ended up being an almost 2-year hiatus from work for me.
mhm.
Um, and I basically figured out what those things were. I think maybe I'd known in some former life, it felt like years before, but I needed to get back into what I knew worked in the past and find some new things. Because I'd had things on my maybe I'm going to do this before I die list for a
Mhm,
long time that had never been given 1 ounce of oxygen.
mm,
And I was finally able to, like, oh, I'm going to learn guitar now. And I'm going to finally start learning a language. And, I want to have my own business. So, and I eventually did have a consulting business in real estate development for 5 more years, actually, when I got back out of this funk. I wound that down recently to do what I'm doing now, but I did go back into the work because I thought I am really freaking good at this, and I should be able to do it in a way that's sustainable and powerful and
mm,
amazing. And I get paid and I have autonomy and I take good care of my clients, but I don't sacrifice and abandon myself in the process.
mhm.
And I had a sense that that was possible, and it totally was. I mean, I was working like when I finally got my act together in my rebirth of work, I was making like twice the money working half the time. And I was like, why the hell didn't I do this before?
So, Cara, hold on. I want to go to that work less, make more because we are all about
Mm.
not grinding, as you say, ditch the grind. Tell me about that. So you left, you came back, and you now, or at the time, work less and made more. So what happened? Like what was the secret sauce there?
So I did a whole bunch of just reaching out to folks, soul searching, networking, conversations with folks, trying to figure out what should I do
Hmm.
next, and ended up after a bunch of these conversations. I even did some interviewing with some other real estate development firms, housing development firms, to see if I wanted to go back to like an employment type scenario. I determined quickly that I did not. They're all kind of the same in the sense of there being sort of a 24/7 expectation around availability.
Mm,
And this notion that even if something, we're not going to necessarily plan really well. And so when these fake emergencies come up, we're just all going to just be available at all times. And, you know, a lot of my colleagues were in families where their spouse was like a full-time,
at home.
parent or whatever. And so
Yep.
they didn't really have the same tension and demands on time. And so it was sort of less of an issue for me. It had been an issue for a long time. And frankly, guys, even if I didn't have kids, I would really still want to have a life. Like I really like to do things.
Hmm.
And this is a total win-win. That's the thing I tell clients and business clients too I work with, and really try to impress upon folks. If we can have people who have a rested, nourished, fun, amazing life with healthy relationships and all, these people kick so much ass at work. Like they are so much more creative,
Totally.
so
Yep.
much more centered. They
Yep.
can actually lead a team because they can think clearly and listen. They have the qualities you need to do good work, basically. So this is not a zero sum scenario, folks.
I
So
totally agree. I totally agree. And if you love what you do, you'll do more of it. You'll get better at
mhm.
it. You'll be able to earn more doing it. It's so simple. I wish more people believed it. I just wish more people believed it.
We just need to keep talking about it.
I
There's
know.
gonna it's
Right.
gonna have to change because it's just reality.
Yep.
And
Yep.
enough people burn out and figure it out the hard way, like I did. I think we're gonna eventually get there. But I remember being at an interview and somebody sat me. The interviewer was explaining to me the scope. It was like four people's job, and I said, "Okay, well, cute." And so you know that nobody can do an able job of, you can maybe kind of
Right.
sort of do, but you're not going to do a good job. In fact, the project's really going to suffer. It's probably going to have a lot of errors and ended up being delayed and have budget problems because you cannot get, it's just not actually possible to give high quality attention. And the person looked like they hadn't slept in a year. And I thought, I am not working
No.
in a place that
Hmm.
people are actual zombies.
Hmm.
And so I thought, okay, well, how can I get in here and do this awesome work in a way that actually works? And
Hmm.
so I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna be a consultant. I'm gonna open a consultancy. I'm gonna do the things that I love the most
Hmm.
and give the most
Hmm.
value at.
Hmm.
And I just did what a lot of, probably your listeners do have done if they've done this, which is get into the network, call people, tell them
Hmm.
what you're up to,
Hmm.
what you're most excited, to work on, and what your strengths and level and expertise is, and listen real hard to what they need and want and see if there's a match. And
100%.
if there is,
Right.
I found my first clients fairly fairly quickly actually, and built up to where I had awesome clients or really cool projects, and I didn't oversubscribe. So if someone said, "Hey, we have another project for you," and I was at capacity, I would decline it.
Hmm.
And I would say, "Thank you so much for thinking of me, but I don't want any of our other work
Right.
to to,
Right.
to
Right.
suffer."
Right. And I want to make sure that I'm doing the best I can for you. Right.
Yes, and
Right.
I'm going to take excellent
Right.
care of
Yep.
everything in my charge, and I'm going to do it as it's needed. I mean, of course, I was available to go to meetings and do. I'd have to go to construction sites. I mean, there are things you got to do,
Yep.
and if it, I've never been a meeting for no reason person, and so if you can do it remotely or if you
Yep.
can do it in other ways, there's just a lot of ways that you can do really good work without having to check all the ridiculous time wasting FaceTime boxes. And yes, I mean, I was able to charge really competitively for the value I brought because people were really happy with the work.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, I worked half of the time. I made twice the money. I did really good work.
Love it.
I felt really pumped about it.
Hmm.
And I really liked it for like 5 years. And then at that, I hit my 20-year mark in the business. And I thought, Cara, it's time for a change.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
how
and
we are
that's
where we
right,
are.
right, right. That's right. And when you first start out on your own, you do what you know because that's your network and that's what you're great at, and that's what you can feel comfortable charging. And then you can figure out, all right, well, now that I have this kind of breathing room, what do I really
Hmm.
want to do? Yeah, that's
Hmm.
so cool. So tell me about, you use this word a lot in your book, and I really like it, probably because I don't know if I have it. Um, Self-possession. So tell the podsters what you mean by that.
Yes. So I talk broadly about the journey out of burnout being where you start in self-neglect, self-abandonment, somewhere around there,
Mm.
self-betrayal, some fun concoction of that. And you move through self-care, which we've talked about, is really just about taking good, strong, honest care of yourself, knowing what you need and need to thrive in doing it. But that doesn't end there
Hmm.
because we go all the way beyond to what I call the magic promised land of self-possession, which is where you're back in touch with your core so hard. You're so strongly um, back in touch with what your values are, what
Hmm.
lights you up, what matters to you in your life, that making decisions around how to spend your time, energy, money, whatever, become so much more natural. We're not just running around in these frenetic pile of stress, never sure if we're doing the right thing. Because once you have that alignment, all of that starts to come a lot more naturally.
Hmm.
And I found and I was able to retain that because even in my consulting business, okay, it wasn't completely happily ever after. I did have to let a client go
Hmm.
because it became clear after a few months that there were some pretty serious misalignments in how we were working and
Yep.
how that project was going. And so, but I didn't make a huge deal about it or make it about me being a bad or them being that. I just said, this isn't a fit. And I left and I got a
Great.
different project. I found more. It's just, and I just, it can honestly be as simple as that. And then I had the psychic energy and literal time to go have work with other things that were a better fit for, you know, the values that I care about
Hmm.
in that work, which I
Hmm.
do. And I really care about having win-win for the community and the project and all the stakeholders in it.
I love that explanation. And as you were talking, what I was thinking about was so for me, the self-possession is probably in my head. I'm thinking self-confidence to know who I am and
Mm-hmm.
what I need to thrive, which is what, I say, and then having the self-confidence to do that or the self-awareness to set the boundaries, all the things, like I know when I'm going down a spiral and I'm like, okay, you follow your nighttime ritual, whatever it is, your bedtime
Mm-hmm.
ritual. The self possession to me is self awareness combined with self confidence and knowing that, okay, this is what I need to do to be the best version of myself and then doing it. You can say
Mm-hmm.
what I need to do. This is what I need to do. And then you don't do it for like three. I do that all the time. I'll be like, oh my God, I know what I need to do. I know what I need to do. And then I don't. And it's a week later and I'm jacked up and all over the place. And all the signs are there. So it's the self possession piece that I think is hard for a lot of people. A lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I love how you're talking about confidence too, because it comes in kind of as a byproduct of doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
We
Hmm.
act in ways where we respect ourselves, our time, our needs. And one specific way, an example of this, uh, a really concrete way that we can put this into practice is to stop canceling on ourselves. Because one thing that burned out people do is they'll have on their calendar, kickboxing class Tuesday at 5, whatever. And then every single Tuesday at 5, some kind of made up crap comes up about someone's having some alleged emergency problem. Okay, occasionally there's a real one, but most of the time it's just your day's just collapsing
Yep.
because of people knowing, by the way, that
Mm.
you are a get it doneer. And so things kind of do come to you. That's a downside of being a high performer. So
Mm-hmm.
what'll happen is things will nudge their way into your radar and you will very happily delete that thing from your calendar and not go. And if you do this over time, it's unfortunate. It's really an act of disrespect
Of
to
yourself.
yourself.
Yes.
And the crazy thing is, it doesn't just impact you. You actually give a really rough vibe to other people as to how to treat you, how your time, how your energy, how your how how your joy, how important it is, and whether or not it should be respected or treated. And if you're pumped, just regularly canceling on yourself and not prioritizing anything about your own life, why should anyone else? They're not going to. They're actually going to learn that you are available always and all the time,
Mhm.
no matter what,
Mhm.
and that you don't actually have needs. Apparently, you're just a weird robot. And so, what do you do? That's your responsibility. And people, not because they're horrible people, but because they need their shit done. And you
Mhm.
seem to get it done. So, when you start actually doing this stuff to take care of yourself, you don't even have to make a big, magical speech or pronouncement. You just do it. You just say, I'm not available at that time. Thank
Oh
you.
my God.
I am available
So
these other
funny.
times. And then you go out. You don't have to also make a lot of excuses. If I don't take this class, then I don't feel healthy. No one cares about that either. You do what you need to do for
Yep.
yourself, and you
Yep.
do not make
Yep.
excuses for living.
Yep.
And then now you're healthy. Now you're actually strong. Now you've done your part, which is your job, to know what your needs are and take care of them. And they see that you're someone to be trusted. You keep your word. You are to be respected.
Yep.
They will not mess with you as much. I
Yep.
promise.
Yep. It's funny because when I talk about boundaries, which we talk about a lot here, and I've had a boundary coach come on, she's coming back again right around the holidays. I like to say you don't have to make a proclamation in town square, right? You don't have to
Yes.
be like, heretofore, I am establishing a boundary. Sometimes you don't even have to say it. Sometimes your behavior is the boundary, right? You don't have to
Mhm.
say, I will no longer check emails on the weekend. Sometimes you can just don't check your email on the weekends. They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's a prime way we train people
Mm-hmm.
to never leave us alone.
Mm-hmm.
We actually we're the ones frenetically doing all this stuff. And now they think, well, they're just used to it. They just
Yeah.
assume it's
Yeah.
fine with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you stop doing it for a while, they'll get used to that too.
Right. Totally. This brings me to a quote I was going to read, but I think you just kind of talked about it. No one is going to give us permission to live our own lives. This is my favorite part. It's not even their job to do so. So when I
Mm-hmm.
read that, I'm going to read that again, Podsters. No one is going to give us permission to live our own lives. It's not even their job to do so. That to me is so much. It's like drop the mic. First of all, they're not going to give you permission. And second of all, not their job, yours, your job,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh,
Yeah.
so powerful. I
It's what
love it.
keeps us waiting. It's what keeps us stuck because we think, oh,
Hmm.
if I just do a little bit more, then they'll notice that, I need a break. They're not
Hmm.
gonna.
Hmm.
And it's not their job. They
Yep.
don't know what your set points and needs are.
Right. And it's our job to tell
They're
them.
responsible for theirs.
Yep. Yep. All right, I got a couple more quotes I want to go through here because I love I mean, I never ever highlight a book ever. I had to figure out how to
Oh,
do it. Okay, never.
oh my God, I'm
So
feeling
a
so
couple things.
special.
These are the terrifying stories we tell ourselves that keep our wings clipped down tight, that keep us assuming there are no realistic possibilities or options to really start living versus surviving. It's all here, right?
It is, and I don't even blame us for all those stories. We've been trained to have those in our head from the start. That's why they're there. They are
Mhm.
cultural expectations, but it is our job to gain awareness of them and then choose accordingly based on what works for us.
So the cultural expectations, it's our job to, what'd you say, develop an awareness about them?
Yeah, to gain
Mhm.
awareness of them and to be able to differentiate
Yeah.
between what is verifiable, immutable fact
Mm-hmm.
and what is any one of the millions of storylines whipping through my head at any given day. Now,
Mm-hmm.
most of it is the storylines. It's just our perception of things. And
Mm-hmm.
so people are thinking, oh, what do you do? It's just as easy as that. It's easy and it's not, right? Because changing those perceptions and those mindsets and those kind of ruts in our brain that have been taking 10, 20, 30, 40,
Mhm.
50 years to get there.
Uh-huh.
Yes, of course it does not take 5 seconds
Yeah.
to, which is just why it's a process. Okay, that's the bad news, folks. It's a process. But the good news is it's super, super step by step, super incremental and
Yep.
very friendly in that
Totally.
way.
And there's a ripple effect or a snowball effect. You start doing it, you see, you get the reward and you keep doing it. I have a really
Mm-hmm.
good example of this, and I want to see if this resonates with you. So there's a concept called kin keeping. Have you heard of this?
No.
So kin keeping is where the women in a household are usually the ones that get the birthday cards, remember it's people's birthdays, make the plans, make sure, so
Mm-hmm.
whatever, your mother-in-law has this, your blah, 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 it's kin keeping of the family relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
this is also actually tied to, I saw some research on this. If a, if a wife passes before the husband, oftentimes the husbands will go right after that or shortly after that because the
Right.
wife is the one that develops all these relationships with the
Mm-hmm.
friends and the family and all that. Anyway, so in my house, I read about this and I'm like, I'm gonna try something. And I sat down with my husband Danny and I said, I no longer want to be responsible for making plans with your family. I will be
Mm-hmm.
responsible with making plans with my family. Your family, you manage it. My family, I manage it. Met off me, pays nor him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, okay, that's fair, right? That's fair. It has been a game changer. And I'm not even talking about any drama or anything like that. I'm just talking about, what's the plan for Mother's Day with your mother? Like that's on him. And
Yeah.
it's such a mental workload that is not in my mind anymore. It's game changing. It is game
I
changing.
love that. And I love how you made it so clear that it was a matter of you dropping it. I mean, a lot of the things that we think are clinging to us and holding us down and like just crushing us down into a little pile of, we're holding on to that stuff. It's not letting go of us because we're gripping it. You need to let that thing go. Although I am curious, have you had any plans with his family since he's
Oh
been in
yeah. Yeah.
charge?
Yeah. Not as much. And here's what's so interesting. This is interesting. I love his family. We all get along great. So this is so funny. They pushed back and they didn't push back consciously. But so, for example, his sister would call me and say, hey, when are we getting together for whatever? And I would say, oh, you know what? This is, I said, Danny's going to manage this. And, I manage the plans with my family. He manages the plans with his family. So you'll hear
Mhm.
from Danny, right? Great. Like a week would go by. She wouldn't hear from him. And she goes, so when are we going out? I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. Probably check with Danny. Like, I mean, and it was probably 4 or 5 times. And now she just goes right to him. And it was just really interesting. And
Love
not to
that.
mention, so there's the tactical space that it opened up in my brain and
Uh-huh.
the emotional space. Like, I get triggered with drama. I really do. It's a character flaw. Well, this one wants to go here and this one wants to go here and this one's gluten free and this one's blah, blah, and I'm like, I can't. Mm-mm, mm.
Mhm.
So he just deals with it. Game changer. Game changer. I highly
I love
suggest
it.
it. Hmm.
But and this strategy that you're describing is appropriate in a lot of places. This notion that you need to that you will have the expectation that there's going to be some pushback, not even like, it's not necessarily toxic or evil. It just because the people kind of liked it the way it was.
Yes.
So you are going to get at work, at the community center, wherever it is that you've been doing stuff that now you're going to do less stuff.
Hmm.
There will definitely be you're going to have a bunch of moments where you're just going to have to gently reinforce what you've
Hmm.
said and not
Hmm.
cave.
Hmm.
And if you expect that, then it's less stressful when it inevitably happens. So it comes, you just push it back. And after a while, yes, folks will get the memo.
And you have to let go of that control too, right? Like I can't complain if we go to a restaurant or whatever, or I
Let
can't
go of the
complain if
control.
what's that?
Yes, let go control.
Yeah. So I can't complain if, I can't be like, oh, well, why'd you pick this spot for brunch, for Mother's Day brunch or whatever. Like, listen, if it's on him, it's on him. So, couple
And
of
let go of
things.
the need of being liked all the time. That's another thing that's really hard
Mm.
for people sometimes. Like it's really hard for some folks to have people unhappy with them. And if that's a little blind spot, block, gremlin lurking in your somewhere, it's going to come up and it's going to tell you that you need to make them happy.
Yeah.
And you
Yep.
just need to remind yourself that their happiness is their job.
That was last week's podcast episode.
Mm-hmm.
You're not responsible for someone else's behavior or their happiness. All right, couple other things I want to make sure we cover, and I want to be mindful of your time. I could talk to you for hours. So you had this pivotal moment and you left your work.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously had to make a plan for it. People who can't. So if you're single or you're the primary earner in your home and you can't, I mean, you could eventually, but are there little things you recommend that people can do when they're in the middle of burnout to try to
Mm-hmm.
reclaim their life without totally upending their life?
Yes. And in fact, that this book was meant to reach people kind of in all points of that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
People
Mm-hmm.
who are, wanting to leave the country and do a thing for a few months and they can take it with them and do it. And people who are in their life who, escaping it at this moment in time, this isn't going to be in the cards for whatever
Right.
reason. So it's meant to meet you, and it's meant to be doable in a very incremental period of time, just a little, like one chapter a week is how it's meant to
Mm-hmm.
be done. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of creating even just a little bit of time for people who are thinking, I literally don't have 5 seconds. Um,
I don't have 5 seconds. It's true.
you know,
I'm sure that's come out of my mouth. I don't have 5 seconds. I can't. Right. Like, yeah,
yes.
please continue.
And so for people that are feeling that way, there's a whole bunch of different little incremental things. One thing is, this doesn't feel maybe super small and incremental, but I have had folks go to a 4-day work week for a little while.
Mm-hmm. I
Now,
love it.
that's obviously something that is probably not something you can just decide on your own, right? But that I actually, thinking back, did do that for a little while I was trying to blink to the finish line of what I was doing, and it frankly was very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're super, super deep in burnout and you've been heading there for years, it is going to take longer to get out versus if you're just starting to kind of feel like you're descending there, your path out is going to be lighter and quicker. Um, but there's that. And then there's just taking a really good hard look. This is going to require a little bit of reflection, but all these reflection activities are in the book at your schedule. And, you know, almost everybody, I've never actually met anybody yet who doesn't have anything on that schedule that can't go. And it's just that we label a lot of things obligations and must do's or shoulds. And so they're on there, but they're not actually required for our survival or the survival of our minor children. Like there's more flexibility than we think there is. And so if we really do like an audit of how we spend every second of our day, we're going to find a little bit of time where we could do a swap. Take this thing out that isn't
Mm-hmm.
serving me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sound a little curmudgeonly here for a second. But if you just take like watching doom scroll news or whatever, and
That's
you say,
great.
okay, I'm going to take that out. I realize that that's actually destroying my faith in humanity anyway. So I'm going to take that 20 minutes out. I'm going to replace that with a walk. I'm going to replace that with journaling. You're not you're not adding stuff. You're just kind of swapping out something that's an energy sucker and
Mm-hmm.
putting in something that's an energy
Mm-hmm.
giver.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy givers are great, right? Because then you actually feel like you have more energy at the end of doing them, which is a really cool thing. And then the last thing is, this is so tactical, but I'm mentioning it because I have a client right now for whom it was really relevant. She was like, I need you to give me some time saving stuff that may seem obvious to you, but is not currently obvious to me in my current state of running around. And she is a single parent. And I said, oh, she lives near me. And so we have this really cool like grocery service where it's high quality, but they also have those. So you can get regular groceries, but you can also get those partially made meals. And it's not that HelloFresh thing where there's a huge box full of a
Right.
hell of
Right.
stuff and it
And you have
takes
to
you five
unpack it
hours.
and chop it up
No
and all that
shade,
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
HelloFresh,
Yeah.
but that takes too much time.
I know.
It's actually a lot easier and it comes in just like a box. It's
Yep.
or a little grocery bag. It comes from someone down the road. Just that, and then there's this, and I don't work for these people, but there's this smoothie box thing that just I get. It's like these frozen things. You throw them in with some nut butter or whatever in the morning, um, and they're fruit, vegetable, seeds. It's just like it's a way of saying I used to spend my morning figuring out how I'm gonna feed myself and live, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's like okay, here. I don't have to think about it. Because like you said, it's not just the physical doing, it's the thinking and the planning and the mental load. And, also I'm probably starving myself to death because I'm not eating properly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just a tactical thing or two
I love
to
it.
just get you going. That way you free up just that little bit of time and headspace to then start working on this stuff.
I love it. I love it. The only thing I would say to the podsters, because I know you, podsters, if you're going down to a 4-day work week, like let's say you decide to take Fridays off for a month, and you can, right? You get a personal day. Don't work on the Friday. Like
Oh, thank God for mentioning
if
that.
that were me, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to the office today. I'm going to take the day off, and then I would be on my computer for like 4 hours. Like, don't do it. Honor yourself, and don't cancel on yourself. I love that expression. Love that.
Nancy, I did do that when I started the 4-day work week. I definitely did that. I did that for the first like 3 weeks. And then I looked at myself and I had a little, so I was like, what in the hell am I? I stopped. Okay, fine. But like sometimes again, the person who we need to put a boundary on is our own house.
100%, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about one more thing before we let you go. So I believe strongly that work-life balance is bullshit and it's a mythical unicorn. And if we could all stop chasing it and give ourselves some grace, we'd all be a lot happier. I like to call it work-life blending. Tell the
Ooh.
podsters, because when I saw this in your book, I was like, yes. So tell the podsters how you approach this mythical unicorn, what you like to say.
Yes, and it is mythical. It's a recipe for pain because it's a recipe for feeling like a failure at doing something that was never possible anyway. And so, like, yes, the grace is so key. And so, the way I think about it is I do call it, I use the word balance, but I say life work in the
Love
sense
it.
of life is the umbrella of your
Love
life.
it.
Whole big, beautiful thing. And in life, we have work, we have relationships, we have creative pursuits, we have our health, we have so much awesome stuff. And what's happened in our culture is we think it's work life balance, working first, and everybody else fighting for a scrap under the table, like it's not actually important. And it's a simple reordering, but I like it because life is primary. Work, by the way, is important. We want to do good work.
Mm-hmm.
We want
Mm-hmm.
to feel purposeful. Um, we want to make a difference and make a great living and all that good stuff. And there's nothing whatsoever wrong with that. The only thing that's wrong with it is putting it above and beyond everything else, where everything else has to, again, just kind of fight for 5 seconds of your life. And when you know that you've got this awesome life and everything just needs to be given its proper time and space within it, then you're actually in the right mindset to make those heavy duty priority decisions as to what makes it in and what doesn't. And what we said in the very beginning is once you've got this vibrant kind of self brewing, you're actually so much better at your work and your life and your
Mm-hmm.
relationships.
I love it. I love it. And words matter around here. And when you start with life work, you're subliminally telling yourself, my life is more important than my work. It's not that your work's not important. Life
Mm-hmm.
first, then work. You work
Yes.
to live, not the other way around, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And frankly, our lives are going to be really sad and unhealthy if we don't give them, if we don't understand that they're primary, and if we don't give them the time. And I've said before, I learned that one the hard way, and a lot of other folks have
Mm.
too. But one of my hopes and goals in life is to help reach people before they go down that hard,
Yep.
so that the path out is just quicker and less painful.
Well, that's a great segue because we're going to link to your book in the show notes, which I don't think I've ever said that because I have my own book, so I don't. I mean, actually, I think I do promote other people's books. Anyway, whatever. So we're going to link to the book in the show notes. Tell us about how people can work with you. Like, how do you work with people to to not get there in the first place? That's what made me think of it.
Yes. So there's kind of three levels. Well, first just the book, and then I have an online course which follows the book, which is like a guided like a
Oh,
video
cool.
course.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's called Sabbatical in a Box, and that's probably the most kind of entry level self-paced way of doing it. Then I have group coaching, and then I have one-on-one coaching, and all of that stuff's all of those options are described on my website.
All the things. All right. So I'm trying to think of what else. Anything else you want to cover before we sign off? This has been delightful. This has been a long time coming. When did I call you? Was it like in July?
Yeah, it's been a little while, but you know how summer goes.
Well,
Kind of
we wanted to time
disappears.
it so it would come out like right in the middle of burnout season. So it's
Well, we did. You know,
coming.
everyone's coming in, to the holiday season burning on fumes. I see you. I used to get sick every December because I
January.
was coming
Yeah.
in so hot. And so yes, it's a really good
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
be doing it. And I guess the last thing I'd say is there's nothing wrong with you. You have everything you need
Mm.
to get on the other side of this. Just a matter of learning how to tap into it and respect it and use it.
I love it. I love it. Burned out to lit up. Ditch the grind and reclaim your life. Available on Amazon and in the show notes. And Cara, thank you so much. This was super fun. And
Thank you,
until
Nikki.
next week, Podsters, peace out.